We are officially in the back half of the 2025 NFL season. It is week 10, and we are here to talk about the headlines from last week in the NFL. Tyler, you are a Rams fan,
Proudly.
and the Rams are tied for first in their own division with a team that just announced themselves emphatically on national television in the Seattle Seahawks. I said last week that the Hawks were slowly working their way into my Super Bowl contenders tier list. They have accelerated that timeline. I understand that it's the Commanders and that the Commanders are not a particularly impressive team to beat, but they blew them out, which we've talked about this year is what dominant teams are supposed to do to bad teams. Where do you think the Seahawks fall in the NFC power structure?
So, I mean, one, just got to give credit to Mike McDonald. Sam Darnold's having a great year. Jackson Smith and Jigba is having an absolutely phenomenal season. A lot of those boys in Seattle are having great seasons, which is why we're talking about them in this light. In terms of where they stack up with a lot of the other power teams in the NFC, right now I probably put them, truthfully, in the 3 to 4 spot, because right now I do think that they're interchangeable with the LA Rams,
Sure.
given that they're tied for the NFC West division lead. But because when I think of the NFC power structure, it's hard to put anyone other than Philly on top right now. But I honestly think that 2 through 4 can be any of the Rams, the Lions, or the Seahawks.
Well, and Seattle plays Los Angeles twice. Those two teams are going to meet twice.
Yeah.
In the back half of this season. Seattle still has 4 divisional matchups remaining in the back half of the season. They play the Cardinals this week. They play the Rams next week. They play the Rams in week 16 and the Niners in week 18. And they have a matchup with the Colts and the Vikings and the Panthers. And while the Vikings and Panthers aren't necessarily NFC powers yet, if there's one thing Carolina has proved over the last 2 seasons, they are an annoying team. And they will be an annoying team almost no matter how good you are. They took Kansas City and Philadelphia to the brink last year. They just beat Green Bay in Green Bay. Minnesota just beat Detroit in Detroit. This is a tough back half of the schedule for the Seahawks. I think that they will emerge probably not winning the division. I think the Rams have a better chance to win the division, even if the Seahawks sweep the series against the Rams, just because the back half of their season is so tough. How do you think the Seahawks are going to look headed into the playoffs versus how they look now in midseason?
I think that the Rams benefit from still having 2 games left on their schedule with the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals, if you are the Niners, actually less so if you're the Niners, if you're the Seahawks or the Rams, it's because that's just the power dynamic of the NFC West. I mean, the Rams beat the Seahawks beat the Niners. The Niners usually split with the Niners usually split with the Cardinals. And then the Niners beat the Rams. That just seems to be the power dynamic of the NFC West. But with that, the Rams still have 5 division games left.
Oh,
They've
damn.
got 1 this week against San Fran. They have yet to play the Seahawks this year, and they've yet to play the Cardinals this year. In Sean McVay's tenure, he's lost once to the Cardinals, which was during their wonder run where they won 10 games in a row in 2021. But the Seahawks, I think they're going to get that one against Tennessee. I see them splitting the series with the Rams, and I see them either splitting or sweeping the Niners. And it's really, really difficult to say because I think that the Seahawks and Rams could very, very well come out with the same record at the end of the season. And at that point, it's going to go down to tiebreakers, even though the Seahawks schedule is more difficult than the Rams, their remaining schedule, because they do have a lot of top teams to play. I think Atlanta should be an easy win. Carolina should be an easy win, but like you've mentioned, Carolina has tended to be one of the biggest trap games for most teams, if there was a trap game. But I think that they're going to beat the Titans. I think they're going to split with the Rams, and I think they're going to beat Atlanta and the Colts. With how much we've talked about them, I think Seattle is probably a more well-rounded team than the Colts, and maybe the blueprint has just been put out how to beat the Colts by the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is stop Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the Colts when we get to the main podcast. But I think Pittsburgh's blueprint had more to do with Indy turning the ball over 5 times in a game they lost by 6. But Seattle's a very interesting team to watch. And I'm very excited to see how they look for the remainder of the season. I really don't know which of them or the Rams is going to emerge as the winner in that division. I think we both agree that it shouldn't be the Niners and that it basically can't be the Cardinals. But Seattle, very well coached team, good offense, good defense, good special teams, great football team, gonna be really, really tough for anyone to beat. Could make a deep playoff run. Could be a team the Rams have to play 3 times.
I don't know if you have seen this, but back on the Cardinals, I don't think the Cardinals have won the NFC West in 15 years.
It's been a while.
Because
I don't think since their last Super Bowl
that season that they went 10-0 to start the year, they didn't win the division. Which I'm only laughing because I'm a Rams fan and the Rams won the division that year. But starting 10-0 and not winning your division is truly, truly impressive, but for all of the wrong reasons. But on to our next headline. We've got talking about another NFC team here. We've got the Vikings that just came out of Detroit, grabbing a really key win in a really, really tough division. Right now, the NFC North stands with the worst team being the Vikings at 4-4, and the top team only being at 5-2. And for the top and bottom, that is a really close. I mean, this division seems like it really can go any way. But in terms of the Vikings, what does this game say to you?
Well, it says that the Vikings are well set into the future, right? They have their franchise quarterback. They have the receiver one in the NFL. They have arguably the best receiving core in the NFL because Jordan Addison's no slouch. They have a great tight end. They have a great defense. They have a good enough offensive line. The Vikings may or may not come out of the slump that Carson Wentz put them into and win the division this year. But they are in a much better position next year and the year after that and the year after that. And the NFC North, aside from including the NFC West, I think the NFC North is probably the most competitive division in football through the halfway point because Green Bay is 5-2-1, Detroit's 5-3, Chicago's 5-3, Minnesota is 4-4. Any of those teams could win the division. I think people would be a little surprised if Chicago or Minnesota won the division. Nobody would be surprised if Green Bay or Detroit took it. But any of those 4 teams could win the division. And you contrast that against the division like the NFC East or the NFC South, where there are clearly cans and cannots. And it's fascinating to watch. Minnesota, good football team, good offense, good defense. That's all it takes.
I mean, yeah, we talked about the Vikings earlier. They were a quarterback away. And if J.J. McCarthy played a really, really great game. And if he continues to put up good games and make good decisions with the football, truly the sky's the limit for this Minnesota Vikings team.
And before we move on to our final headline, just a quick shout out. T. Higgins is the 3rd player ever to record a receiving touchdown in 9 straight home games. He joins Jerry Rice in that illustrious category. T. Higgins, I'm just going to take the anytime touchdown next time he's at home to break that streak, because Rice, I believe, stands alone at 10 in a row.
I believe it's Chris Carter also at 9 games, and I believe it is Jerry Rice at 10 games. But T. Higgins has been playing absolutely out of his mind while in Cincinnati, and I will also be taking that anytime touchdown for T. Higgins the next time Cincinnati's at home. But T. Higgins, keep that streak going. We'd love to see it. Congratulations on being in the history books.
And now a very recent, the trade deadline was yesterday. In fact, far less than 24 hours ago. It ended at 4 o'clock yesterday. It's currently 10 o'clock in the morning. And I think the biggest surprise was not necessarily that the Jets are sellers, but who they sold and how much they got in return. So why don't you walk us through what you see from the Jets and their strategy at the deadline?
So the Jets, they sold Quinnen Williams to Dallas for a first. I believe it is a first this year and a second next year, or is it a second?
Flip that. Second this year, first next year.
Got a second this year, first rounder next year, and they traded Sauce Gardner to the Colts for 2 first-round picks and got Adonai Mitchell. And A.D. Mitchell is – I think getting A.D. Mitchell in that package does – he is a valuable depth receiver, which the Jets desperately have needed. But you sell your 2 best defensive players at the deadline, but you get a total haul of 3 first-rounders, a second-rounder, and a couple of depth pieces. And what that tells me is that I think at this point in Quinnen Williams' career, I think that this was a good point to sell.
Yeah.
Because he is not necessarily the young guy anymore, but he's still playing at an elite level, and generally that is a good time to sell, and they did get some good pieces for him. Sauce Gardner was a little bit of a head-scratcher.
And that was the first domino to fall. I got that notification, and I had to verify that it was real. Because
I had the same reaction.
They extended Gardner in the offseason, and everyone was like, oh, great, the Jets have their receiver of the future and their corner of the future. I think what this says to me is Gardner and Williams either didn't or don't fit into Glenn's long-term plan and culture. And it's controversial, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up working out for the Jets. I really like Aaron Glenn as a coach, and maybe he's just one of those guys who's better as a coordinator than a head coach. But if Aaron Glenn is selling 2 of the best defensive pieces individually in the league, a top 5 corner and a top 5 to 8 D tackle, if a defensive coach is selling those pieces, either he knows that they're not going to contend while those guys are under contract, or they don't mesh with his philosophy and his scheme and everything.
And it absolutely can be both. I shouldn't be laughing because it's really not nice, but I saw this video of a New York Jets fan. He was a little boy, and his dad told him that Sauce Gardner was traded, and then he started crying, which is reasonable reaction when you're a child and your favorite player gets traded. And then the comments section was talking about, why would you submit your son to being a New York Jets fan? And bringing this back to Aaron Glenn, you do unfortunately work for probably the second worst owner in the NFL, being Woody Johnson. But I trust Aaron Glenn's plan. If he thinks that Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner are either don't mesh, I can't imagine why Quinnen Williams wouldn't mesh. But if you think that they either don't mesh, or that you think it's best to go out and hand pick some guys yourself from the draft, then maybe that's what you should do. Because if Aaron Glenn's trying to build and recreate a culture in New York, maybe handpicking some guys that you think have the character that you're looking for and the skill set that you're looking for, maybe that's the way to go. But what I hope won't happen is that the Jets will continue to suffer because now they have become even more talent deficient. And Aaron Glenn will get the boot before we really get to see what his New York Jets team looks like.
Yeah, I hope that Woody Johnson, arguably the worst owner in the NFL.
The only one I was mentioning before was Jerry Jones.
He's really bad, yeah. But arguably the worst owner in the NFL in Woody Johnson. I hope that he sticks through the Aaron Glenn process. Because he stuck through Robert Saleh, and we got to see what Saleh's team was, and it was still underperforming, largely because of deficiencies at quarterback. And Saleh got the boot. I hope that Glenn gets the chance to build his team, because I'm interested to see what it is. And let's not pretend that the second-round pick they got from the Cowboys isn't going to be high.
Yeah.
And let's not pretend that their own first-rounder, at least this year, is not going to be very high. The Jets are in a position now where they can go get a quarterback, even if they're at 2 or 3 this year or next year. They have enough capital to move up and go get a quarterback if they feel like there's one worth going and getting. And that's a very, very risky team building strategy in the modern NFL, because you don't want to give the next general manager pieces to play with. You don't want to give the next head coach pieces to play with. But it says to me that Glenn feels like he has good job security, that he and Woody Johnson and the general manager have an understanding of where they are and a plan for where they're going. And 3 firsts, a second, and 2 players, the 2 young players with potential, is a very, very interesting return.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little NBA reference. It's a little bit like the Mavs trading away Luka Doncic.
Yeah, but honestly, yeah.
Because, I mean, Luka...
Second time we've gotten a Luka-level trade in the NFL this year.
You're trading away the faces of your team, but you are getting a haul out of it. But I'm curious to see where this Jets team is going to go in the future, and I really hope that we get to see Aaron Glenn's process throughout. The only concern that I have for the process is very rarely a rookie quarterback is able to fix offensive deficiencies that existed before. I think Jackson Dart right now is doing that very well. It seems like the New York Giants are actually able to put up 20 points every week. They put up 30 a couple times. But very rarely is a rookie quarterback able to patch up the deficiencies left by a scheme or a previous regime. But I want to see Aaron Glenn play out. I want to see what Aaron Glenn has to bring to the Jets. I want to see his process. I want to see what his team looks like. And I just hope he doesn't get the boot before we get to see that.
All right. Let's go over our weekly awards. We have a few returning faces at a few key positions. Most notably, Unk still got it. Calais Campbell. One Unk still got it a few weeks ago during the first Cardinals Seahawks game. He is having himself a season at D-tackle. I'm glad the Cardinals didn't trade him because he's kind of their whole identity on defense right now. 2 sacks, 2 tackles, 3 QB hits for Calais Campbell against the Dallas offensive line, which is impressive.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good game. Shout-outs to Calais Campbell. That was a hell of a week. I'm going to let you talk about the NFC Player of the Week because he's very near and dear to your heart.
So the NFC Player of the Week that we have this this
You got
week was Matthew Stafford. Granted, against the New Orleans Saints, he still played a really great game, 24 for 32, 281 yards, 4 touchdowns, and posted a 150.39 passer rating. Absolutely great week for Matthew Stafford, kind of building on that MVP candidacy, and I want to see him do it against some better teams. But on to our AFC Player of the Week. This week we had Brock Bowers for the Las Vegas Raiders. He had 12 catches, 127 yards, and three scores.
Yeah, when we were talking about Jags Raiders last week, I said maybe you get a big Ashton Genty score, maybe you get a big Brock Bowers score. Did not expect 3 big Brock Bowers scores. Yeah. I don't remember who it was, but some fantasy site posted that Brock Bowers outscored a roster of fantasy players on his own. 3 of those players were not only on my team but in my starting lineup last week. So I lost naturally. But Brock Bowers reminding everyone why the Raiders drafted a tight end so high after drafting one in the second round the year prior. Incredible player.
Yeah.
We love to see it. Our coach of the week, and this award is usually based on us agreeing on a result and then having a magnified result in the opposite direction. This week is no different. Jonathan Gannon, head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, I said, and I'll own this, I said that Dak Prescott would be able to tear up the Cardinals' scheme. He didn't.
No.
Jonathan Gannon called a hell of a game defensively. The offense, led by Jacoby Brissett, did enough to win. And not just win by multiple scores in Dallas. Jonathan Gannon, Coach of the Week, well earned. It's the first time I think I've ever said anything positive about him.
It is most definitely the first time I've ever said anything positive about him.
But hell of a game, Jonathan Gannon. Don't stack anymore. You need a top 10 pick.
Yeah, and on to our last weekly award. For our chart of the week, we've got Sam Darnold, which his stat line was 21 of 24, 330 yards, and 4 touchdowns with 1 interception. But this chart is pretty.
4 touchdown passes, all of them arcing 10-plus yards, spread all over the field. It is a gorgeous chart. It's up on screen now for the first time. I should have been putting the charts in all along, but I wasn't.
I mean, you've got a deep touchdown to the left. You've got a deep touchdown to the right. You've got a medium-range touchdown on both sides. You've got a nice even spread of completions from the line of scrimmage up to 15 yards. I mean, it's just a really pretty chart. This is what you like to see when you're looking at them.
And that will do it for the headlines edition of Any Given Sunday. The VOD, as is customary, is already up. The podcast will go up tomorrow. And, thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.